The morning sunlight streaming through the window gently illuminated the kitchen counter. On this cold February morning, the warmth of the heating system enveloped the entire room. The aromatic scent of toasting bread mingled with the rich fragrance of coffee, creating our usual morning atmosphere. I'm Amy Blackwood. This is how my day always begins. Wearing a crisp white apron, I prepare breakfast for my family. My husband William works as a senior engineer at a major audio equipment manufacturer, where he's involved in developing new products daily. Our daughter Madison is a third grader at a private elementary school. She has a bright and honest personality, and especially looks forward to her piano lessons. I work at the same school as a music teacher. We're a typical middle-class American family. That was our pride. Madison, don't forget your piano lesson bag. I called out from the kitchen, and an energetic reply came from upstairs. Yes, Mom. I just checked. My daughter's cheerful voice echoed through the morning kitchen. The sound of her feet rushing down the stairs seemed to tell the story of our home's warmth. William appeared in the kitchen as usual, adjusting his suit tie. I'll be working late again today, he announced apologetically while taking a sip of coffee. Take care. I made you lunch, I smiled, handing him a homemade lunch box. A sudden turning point came to these peaceful days. One evening, William returned from work and began speaking in a heavy tone. Mother's been hospitalized. Your mother's in the hospital. My voice rose involuntarily. Yes, severe pneumonia. She's been admitted to a private room at Massachusetts General Hospital. From then on, our days began to change gradually but surely. Hospital visits 3 times a week became routine, and visiting between work hours added new responsibilities to our lives. My husband's return time grew even later, often past midnight. Madison and I took turns visiting the hospital. From the hospital room window, you could see a panoramic view of Boston, and although my mother-in-law would say, "I'm sorry to be in such a nice room," we continued to visit, hoping for her recovery. In the quiet flow of time, our lives began to beat to a new rhythm. However, no one noticed that an unseen shadow was creeping into our peaceful daily life. From the upper floors of Massachusetts General Hospital, the Boston skyline cast a quiet glow under the winter's cloudy sky. The private room on the 6th floor was a clean space with the latest medical equipment neatly arranged. The white walls reflected soft light, and the fluorescent lights on the ceiling cast a gentle glow. Only the rhythmic beeping of monitors marked the quiet air. A hand sanitizer dispenser was installed beside the door, with disposable masks for visitors neatly lined up next to it. By the window stood 2 comfortable brown leather chairs. The latest medical equipment surrounded the bed, each blinking as if watching over my mother-in-law's condition. My mother-in-law had just finished her afternoon vital signs check and was finally beginning to breathe peacefully. About 10 minutes had passed since the nurse had finished taking records and left the room. I quietly sat down in the chair by the window and opened my music lesson plans. Madison had come with me to visit since school had ended early. "Hey, Mom," Madison suddenly called out in a small voice. It wasn't her usual cheerful tone. "What's wrong?" "My head hurts." My daughter's voice was unusually weak. When I looked up, Madison had her hand on her forehead, wearing a pained expression. Seeing my usually energetic daughter like this triggered an instinctive maternal concern. "It's okay, let's rest a bit." I quickly closed my lesson plans and placed my hand on my daughter's forehead. Although there was no fever, her complexion wasn't good. I immediately guided her to the sofa and had her lie down. While gently rubbing Madison's back, I checked on her headache. "How does it feel?" "Well, it feels strange. I hear something like ringing in my ears." I frowned at Madison's words. Perhaps there was some reason why she felt unwell every time we came to visit. I looked around the hospital room. The latest medical equipment stood like sentinels. The heart rate monitor, for stand, and various devices managing my mother-in-law's condition. The afternoon sunlight streamed in diagonally, casting soft shadows on the equipment. In the quiet space, I could feel Madison's breathing gradually becoming more steady. The rhythmic sounds of the air conditioning and electrocardiogram created the unique tension of a hospital room. The occasional sound of medical staff's footsteps in the hallway and the creaking of wheelchairs made the hospital feel like a space outside of normal life. Feeling a little better. When I checked on Madison after a while, she nodded weakly. "Yes, but..." Madison hesitated to continue speaking. That's when I noticed her gaze was directed under the bed. There was anxiety in her eyes. "Mom." Suddenly, Madison's voice began to tremble. Her small body was shaking slightly. "What's wrong?" "Under the bed, there's something scary." I placed my hand on my daughter's small shoulder. Her skin, which should have been warm, felt cold. "What kind of thing?" "I don't know, but it's scary." Madison's face had turned pale. I had never seen my usually bright and active daughter look so frightened before. Perhaps a child's intuition had sensed something abnormal. I slowly approached the bed and looked underneath. In the dim space, there was an unfamiliar black box-like device. Its shape was strange for medical equipment. The matte black surface gave an ominous impression. And on its side was a familiar logo, that of my husband's audio equipment company. A small LED was blinking red. "This is..." As the words fell from my throat. "You shouldn't touch that." A low, cold voice resonated from behind. When I turned around, my husband was standing there. He was watching us with a sharp gaze I had never seen before. His expression lacked its usual gentleness. Standing in his suit at the entrance to the room, he remained motionless, as if monitoring our movements. Madison let out a small cry and pressed herself against me as if hiding. The atmosphere in the hospital room instantly filled with tension that seemed to freeze the air. Even the afternoon sunlight streaming through the window suddenly felt cold. In my mind, all the previous feelings of unease suddenly connected. My husband's late return times. My mother-in-law's sudden illness. And Madison's unexplained headaches. Could everything be related to this black box? Along with the fear spreading in my chest, I was overwhelmed by the sensation of our everyday life crumbling with an audible crash. I took out my smartphone with trembling fingers. It took twice as long as usual to unlock the screen. I searched for the number of my childhood friend, Detective Sarah Collins. Finding her name registered as an emergency contact, I immediately pressed the call button. "Sarah, I need police help. I tried desperately to maintain composure, but I could tell my voice was shaking. Madison's small body was pressed tightly against my back. Amy? What's wrong? Sarah's voice on the receiver immediately mixed with vigilance. Years of friendship had probably detected the abnormality in my voice. Come to the 6th floor of Massachusetts General Hospital right now. Please. I explained the situation as briefly as possible while trying to maintain my composure. I'm on my way. Sarah's voice carried its usual calmness. My mother-in-law continued to breathe quietly. Her peaceful expression couldn't possibly imagine what was happening in this room now. Outside the window, winter clouds hung heavy, as if reflecting the oppressive atmosphere in this room. A freezing tension filled the investigation headquarters room at the Boston Police Department. In the center of the large room, several desks were arranged in a circle, with computer monitors casting a bluish light. Police officers conversed in hushed voices, with only the sound of papers being turned quietly echoing. Outside, the sun had already begun to set, and the fluorescent lights of the police headquarters were reflected in the windows. A floor plan of the hospital was displayed on the large screen, and in front of it, Detective Sarah Collins was giving instructions to the gathered investigators. Outside the window, twilight was approaching, and street lights were beginning to illuminate one by one. We need to proceed with this case carefully. Sarah's voice lacked its usual softness. The victim is still hospitalized. The suspect has high technical expertise as an engineer. And, she paused for a moment, glancing at me. The safety of the victim's family is also a top priority. More than 20 police officers had already gathered at the investigation headquarters. A photo of the suspicious device found at Massachusetts General Hospital was displayed in one corner of the screen. The investigation will proceed in 3 teams, Sarah continued while looking at the documents in her hand. First, the financial investigation team. Please uncover all financial motives including the suspect's asset status, debts, and insurance contracts. There are rumors about gambling debts in particular. Also check travel records to Las Vegas. The technical analysis team, please expedite the detailed analysis of the seized device. Verify how the suspect, an audio equipment manufacturer's engineer, produced and brought in this device. Cross-reference with security camera footage. And the site surveillance team. 10 officers are already positioned at the hospital. Patient safety is the top priority. Maintain strict surveillance at all entrances in case the suspect appears. The leaders of each team nodded and immediately began moving. The sound of computer keyboards being typed, voices confirming details over the phone, and papers being turned filled the room. The first report from the technical analysis team came in 2 hours later. This is an ultrasonic device harmful to the human body. There was clear tension in the voice of the analyst who had been invited as an acoustic engineering expert. The middle-aged man in a white coat began a detailed explanation while displaying scan images of the device on the screen. This device is very cleverly made. While its appearance mimics general medical equipment, it contains a special ultrasonic generator inside. Furthermore, the frequency it generates is set to a range particularly harmful to the human body. The analyst typed on the keyboard and displayed a 3D model of the device's internal structure. Complex circuits and specially shaped vibrators were clearly shown. It's a device that generates ultrasound above 20 kHz, beyond the normal human auditory range. Long-term exposure could cause serious health damage. I took a sharp breath. Madison's headaches, my mother-in-law's rapidly deteriorating condition. Was everything caused by this device? Moreover, this device has remote control functionality built in. It can be controlled by radio waves and operated using the hospital's Wi-Fi environment. Reports from the financial investigation team also began revealing shocking facts one after another. We've confirmed debts at the Bellagio Casino in Las Vegas. Total amount, $600,000. Further, debts from illegal gambling sites, about $300,000. Borrowing from loan sharks confirmed as well. Exceeding $100,000 including interest. Sarah furrowed her brow while reviewing the documents. So the total debt is approximately $1 million. Yes. And we've made another important discovery. The financial investigation team member presented new documents. The victim, Doris Blackwood's estate has been determined to be approximately $5 million. Furthermore, high-value life insurance policies were taken out on both his wife and child. The truth was being revealed at a horrifying speed. I unconsciously leaned back in my chair. My husband had first tried to obtain his mother's inheritance to repay his debts. And then, even Madison and me. We have complete evidence. Sarah began summarizing the investigation results. Motive, means, physical evidence, everything is clear. We'll proceed with requesting an arrest warrant. The arrest preparations proceeded with surprising speed. The arrest warrant was immediately issued by the judge, and special forces were positioned. Hospital security was further strengthened, with police officers stationed at my mother-in-law's room around the clock. Detectives brought in new reports one after another, and the atmosphere at investigation headquarters grew even more tense. Analysis of security camera footage confirmed my husband entering and leaving the hospital room late at night, and the timing of the device's installation was identified. Hospital security logs also revealed records of my husband using his research and development department ID to enter and exit as a regular staff member. With all preparations complete, Sarah came to me with heavy steps. Though fatigue was evident on my friend's face, her gaze was filled with strong determination. We'll move in for the arrest tomorrow morning. You and Madison will spend tonight in a safe location. Outside the window, it had become completely dark. The city lights reflected on the rain-wet roads. Somewhere beyond this darkness, my husband might be planning his next move. However, he would no longer have the opportunity to hurt us. The lights at police headquarters didn't go out until late into the night. Final briefings for tomorrow's action continued. I lay on the bed in the provided rest room, watching Madison's sleeping face, wondering where our peaceful days had begun to distort. The next morning, the hallways of Massachusetts General Hospital still held the stillness of pre-dawn. In the dimly lit space filled with the scent of disinfectant, only the occasional footsteps of night shift nurses quietly echoed. On the sixth-floor ward, more than 10 Special Forces members were hidden in their positions. All wore bulletproof vests and had wireless earpieces. I watched the monitors with Sarah in the third-floor surveillance room. More than 20 security cameras showed images of police officers positioned throughout the hospital. The emergency entrance, main entrance, back door, and elevator halls on each floor. All entrances were under strict surveillance. Target arriving at main entrance, the communications officer's voice broke the silence. The surveillance camera showed my husband's figure. He was wearing his usual navy suit, his leather shoes perfectly polished. He carried a small black attaché case. While his appearance was unchanged, there was an unfamiliar tension in his face. "All teams, stand by," Sarah's voice resonated through the radio. "Target passing through first floor lobby. Heading to elevator." My heart began racing. My throat was dry, and sweat beaded on my palms. On the monitor, my husband pressed the elevator button. The doors opened, and he entered. The digital display numbers slowly increased. My tension mounted with each floor he passed. Then, as the elevator stopped at the 6th floor and the sound of doors opening came through the radio. "William Blackwood." The police chief's voice thundered through the hallway. More than 10 police officers appeared from both sides, completely surrounding my husband. All wore bulletproof vests and had weapons ready. "You're under arrest for attempted murder and insurance fraud." My husband's expression instantly froze. His hand gripping the attaché case tightened, his knuckles turning white. His eyes quickly scanned his surroundings, but there was no escape. Special Forces members had already secured his rear. The elevator hall's emergency exit was also certainly covered. "Put your hands behind your head and slowly get on your knees." My husband slowly placed the attaché case on the floor and took the commanded position. The metallic sound of handcuffs being attached echoed sharply in the hallway. My husband turned toward me. His eyes no longer held their former warmth. Rather, they seemed to hold something like hatred. The forensics officer carefully opened the case. Inside was another ultrasonic device. It appeared to be a new, improved version, smaller than the previous one. Don't tell me," Sarah's voice trembled. "He was planning to plant another device this morning." The interrogation room was illuminated by cold fluorescent light. Gray walls and a single table, 2 chairs facing each other. A security camera silently looked down on the room. Only the sound of a small ventilation fan broke the silence. "You'll tell us everything." Sarah sat across from my husband. She spread out thick investigation documents and picked up a pen. The recording machine was switched on, its red lamp beginning to blink. "Why did you do this?" "It was all for money." My husband's voice was surprisingly calm, somehow hollow. "I needed to repay my debts. Las Vegas debts, loans from loan sharks. Everything was choking me. The repayment deadline was the end of this month. As things stood, my life was over. But still, your own mother. It was a perfect plan." My husband began speaking in an emotionless voice, staring at the desk. "The ultrasonic device was a derivative of a military project I was involved with in the development department. It emits frequencies harmful to the human body over long periods. It gradually drains strength and ultimately strains the heart. To doctors, it would only appear as weakening due to aging." The air in the interrogation room grew heavier. Sarah's hand trembled slightly. Mother's deteriorating condition was exactly as calculated. In just another week. My husband's words trailed off. It should have been the perfect natural death. Gradually, without anyone noticing. With Mother's $5 million inheritance, I could have repaid all my debts. What about Amy and Madison? Sarah's voice shook with anger. They were destined for the same fate. A cold smile appeared on my husband's lips. That expression was unrecognizable as the husband I had lived with for 10 years. They had high-value life insurance policies. After Mother, it would have been their turn. $2 million for Amy, $3 million for Madison. It was a perfect plan. I listened to that confession through the observation room's glass. My husband's figure seen through the soundproof glass seemed like a completely different person. Had all the kindness I had believed in, all the happy days we spent together, been lies? Had even his love for our daughter been an act? The case was widely reported the next day. Attempted murder by audio engineer using sophisticated methods, unprecedented crime using ultrasonic device, family tragedy born from technology abuse. All newspapers reported simultaneously, and television news ran special features. The Boston Herald covered the incident on its front page, sounding an alarm about new threats posed by technological advancement. The New York Times editorial pointed out the laxity in medical facility security systems. CNN organized a special program, inviting experts to discuss the possibility of similar incidents. The social response exceeded expectations. Particularly intense discussions arose about the safety management of medical equipment. A nationwide review of hospital security systems began, and regulations on bringing in medical equipment were significantly strengthened. The audio equipment manufacturer also announced strengthening of their technology management system. New guidelines were to be established regarding the civilian application of military technology. Madison, my mother-in-law, and I began a new life under the police protection program. We would leave Massachusetts and live in a new place under new names. My mother-in-law's condition showed remarkable improvement after the device's removal. Madison's headaches completely disappeared, and she gradually regained her smile. Spring was beginning to show in the city. New buds were swelling on the trees visible from the police protection facility's window. The winter's events had left deep wounds in our family. However, it was certainly a relief that the lives of my beloved daughter and mother-in-law were protected. Along with the arrival of a new season, our lives were also about to take another step forward. A week after moving, most of the cardboard boxes were unpacked. The furniture provided as part of the protection program was simple but created a warm space. In this unfamiliar city far from Boston, our new life was about to begin. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Madison approached with an anxious expression. "Are we really going to be okay?" In my daughter's eyes, asking in a small voice, residual fear was still visible. Even 2 months after the incident, she still occasionally had nightmares. "Yes, we'll definitely be okay." I put down my knife and hugged my daughter tightly. "No one can hurt us anymore." I could feel Madison's body gradually relaxing. In the living room, my mother-in-law sat in a chair by the window, knitting. Having completely recovered from the effects of the ultrasonic device, healthy color had returned to her cheeks. Sometimes her fingers would stop counting stitches, and she would gaze out the window. At such times, she must be thinking about her son. At dusk, my mother-in-law quietly called me. "You are my real daughter." I stopped at these sudden words. Large tears glistened in my mother-in-law's eyes. "My son, perhaps I made mistakes in raising him. But meeting you has been the greatest joy of my life." Tears flowed from my eyes as well as I held my mother-in-law's hands. Though we're not connected by blood, this bond will never break. Perhaps it had even grown stronger through those events. The trial dragged on longer than expected. Though the evidence was perfect and the prosecution's argument was unshakable, the defense continued to fight, using technical expertise as a shield. Each time I faced my husband, no, the defendant in court, I trembled at the coldness in his eyes. There was no trace of the husband I had lived with. On the day of the final trial, the judge pronounced the sentence in a solemn voice. The defendant is sentenced to 25 years in prison. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Prosecutor Sarah gently embraced my shoulders. Now everything would end. We could begin walking a new path. However, my husband's attitude never changed until the end. According to reports from the prison, he showed no signs of remorse, rather repeatedly making statements praising the ingenuity of his plan. Several letters requesting visits arrived, but we didn't respond. We needed to firmly close the door on the past. Life in the new city gradually took shape. Madison began to fit in at her new school and made new friends. Her former bright smile was gradually returning. On holidays, we enjoy picnics in the nearby park and sometimes visit the zoo. I began working again as a teacher at a local music school. Each time I encounter the pure eyes of my students, my heart feels healed. My mother-in-law also started participating in local volunteer activities, finding new purpose as an instructor in a knitting class. The spring sunshine grows stronger day by day, and young leaves on the street trees sway in the wind. Madison often picks flowers along the road on her way home from school. Those flowers arranged in a small vase add definite colors of hope to our new home. "Hey, Mom," Madison suddenly said one morning. "I want to become a police officer in the future. I want to help people in trouble, like Aunt Sarah." Those words made my eyes well up unexpectedly. My daughter who overcame trauma and found strength to look to the future. My mother-in-law who didn't lose her kindness. And myself, desperately living in a new environment. We had certainly begun walking forward. Outside the window, cherry trees were in full bloom. Along with the arrival of a new season, our scars too would gradually heal. Though we can never erase the past, we can use it as nourishment to live stronger and more kindly. That's what I believed. "Shall we go for a walk today?" my mother-in-law suggests. Madison happily runs over and takes my hand. As we walked toward the park together, the spring breeze gently caressed our cheeks. Surely, in this warm wind, there was a certain promise of a new life.